Welcome everyone to the final review and comments about the Lenovo IdeaPad 720S with AMD Ryzen. So this is one of the first machines with mobile AMD Ryzen with Vega graphics. Very nice, slim and compact machine. Aluminum case. As I said in other videos, I'm not the very greatest fan of aluminum machines, but this is what some people expect nowadays in the premium or higher level segment. Although if you travel a lot, I find it a little bit annoying in cold areas when you unpack it. Cold to touch, getting hot when you work more with this, especially in warmer regions. And it can get scratchy. I rather prefer some old-fashioned plastic, something that in my opinion has nicer scratch patterns over the years. But anyway, that is just what it is and what you get nowadays unless you buy Lenovo ThinkPads, I guess. Although it is quite compact, we have quite some ports. On this side, USB and headphone jack. On the other side, another USB 3 as well as two USB-C. While this one has a power symbol, it also charges in the other one, as you can see. However, only the second one here has an alternative display mode, and I even tested it with a 4K MST display that worked on this, even on Linux. In my opinion, 4 USB ports are of course quite nice. However, given one is usually already used for power delivery and another one may often be used as an external display, this effectively still leaves 2 USB ports for regular use unless you use a USB-C hub with power delivery and such. The display is a matte Full HD display, which I like very much. I very much prefer the matte displays, and Full HD is enough for me with the size of a screen. This results in a high DPI scaling of 1.5. If you run it with a high DPI scaling of 1, meaning a pixel mapping of 1 to 1, the text is already small enough. I personally prefer to run it with a high DPI scaling of 1.5. So here this XIMAX text or even my own UI elements here are currently running with 1.5 scaling, which I think is ideal and results in slightly sharper text. The only thing is, display-wise, of course I would love and much prefer if they would install a 16:10 display, especially given how much black space is here. That would allow Lenovo to separate nicely from all the other cheaper machines out there. I really would wish they would do this in the future. So much screen real estate that could be used here. Yeah, that is unfortunately often what you get. With this kind of details, I really wonder what attention to detail the companies are giving to their products. Although Microsoft is using the 3x2 displays, I really wish more vendors would have the courage to install more awesome displays for real day every work use. The trackpad is very nice to use also in Linux. It just works. In my opinion, in Linux this even works slightly better than the Apple ones from 2 or 3 years ago. Personally, in my opinion, these oversized Apple ones are a little bit annoying to use, at least for me as heavy keyboard user. For me, this size of a trackpad is perfect and it works really well on Linux. I'm personally not a fan of fingerprint readers. I don't like when someone can take my finger and unlock my machine or copy it from a water glass and such. I'm a fan of old-fashioned passwords, so I didn't give the fingerprint reader much attention. If it would be possible, like in the ThinkPads or such, I would even order the machine without one. The keyboard does not have too much travel, but it was surprisingly good to type on. I feared that the keyboard layout here with this Enter key, and at least in the German layout also here with the less than and greater than key here are a little bit strange. On the initial unboxing video I commented that this looks a little bit funny. Unlike my initial fears, it was not really a problem while typing. I recently typed on some other keyboards and in my opinion this is really one of the better keyboards to get some typing done. We also opened this in another video. You can at least self-service the M2 SSD, and the only thing that's not working on Linux is a wireless module that you could theoretically swap out for another one, I guess. Or I think there was some binary-only driver, although I'm personally not the greatest fan of binary-only drivers. I used it only with Ethernet on Linux, which for my office use here was not a problem. If I would purchase a machine, I would probably make sure to have another wireless module. I have some old stock or rely on this binary-only driver. Of course, the loudspeakers are a little bit lacking, despite the JBL and Dolby Atmos logo. But this is not a surprise for such a compact machine. I don't see how they can much improve it unless they have the speakers coming out of the front and such. The speakers do not sound that outstanding, but again, no surprise for this form factor. On Linux as usual, if you have not yet seen the other videos, about the headphone jack on many retake codecs on Linux. As usual, the Linux ALSA drivers misconfigure this retake codec, so the headphone output is lacking a lot of the bass frequencies. That can be easily fixed with a patch, and happens also with all the other machines in latest years, from ThinkPads, Dell XPS, Microsoft Surfaces, and probably everything that is using the retake codecs. No surprise there, just that eventually needs to be fixed in the Linux kernel once and for all. Many people speculate that with this soldered memory on the motherboard, it may only use one memory channel. However, given that it is heavily thermal throttling, I don't think that's such a big of a deal. As far as I can see, you would need a much better thermal subsystem, ventilation and heat pipe and such to sustain this heavy load for a longer period of time anyway. While I personally think it would of course be nice if they spent this extra millimeter for user serviceable memory and also dual memory, especially for a better thermal system for even better CPU and memory performance. The webcam is of course a normal slim and compact webcam. No surprises in image quality there, just what you get from compact machines. The Wi-Fi aside, that can also be a problem on many other machines with the Linux driver situation at times. I can totally recommend this machine. It is really nice to see AMD back in the same league as Intel in regards to CPU performance and especially for battery life, although that's not as seeable in this machine given the small battery, but in general the low power consumption is there, and it will be really interesting to see other machines coming out this year with AMD Ryzen. There also was already an announcement from Lenovo to upgrade the ThinkPads this year with AMD Ryzen, and this will probably be my personal dream machine. Many reviewers will point out the battery life, the performance, the thermal throttling, not only on this but nearly all of the machines, and also ThinkPad fans and long-term users, Ethernet jack and user serviceability of memory and such. And on the other side, PC sales are going down, or at least not up. And I really wonder if manufacturers would listen to the users and would build machines that are just 2 or 3 millimeters wider or thicker and have a memory slot for SD cards and have a Ethernet jack in the IBM ThinkPad line and such, if the PC sales would not be much higher in this day and age. Also, given the thermal design power configuration here, I wonder why there is no BIOS option. I think it could be left to the user to choose in the BIOS if they want a CDDP configurable thermal design power of 15 or 20 watts, if they want shorter or longer battery life. I think the owners of this machine deserve this choice. However, it may be related to the thermal subsystem not being able to get the heat out, but in general I'm of course a fan of options and letting the users the choice. I'm not really sure if it's worth to get the slightly higher spec machine, given that it is thermal throttling anyway. Just like on Apple MacBooks, often the more expensive higher performance choice does not have any value if you really use it, because thermal throttling will throttle it down after 5 minutes or 10 minutes max. There are 2 or 3 other mobile AMD Ryzen machines right now, I think from Acer and HP. In my opinion, the Hewlett-Packard machines often were not the greatest quality, so the Acer may have slightly better memory channel configuration. Do you need a little bit extra power on the go, or do you need the better build quality, case and such, matte display for potentially longer life, and maybe slightly better keyboard and touchpad and such for better usability on the go? Given that many people will have a more powerful machine at home, I guess this machine is a very good option for road warriors, for traveling on the go, and for more performant use case scenarios. There still is a bigger workstation than in the office or at home, waiting for the real workload, or as many developers do nowadays anyway, just log in into cloud servers and such for all the heavy duty computing work. So very nice portable machine. I did not find too much to complain about, and I'm personally looking forward to the ThinkPads later this year with AMD Ryzen. And of course I still dream that they ship with an Ethernet port. If the ThinkPads come with an Ethernet port, it's a total no-brainer, and I will probably go for this. If they still come without an Ethernet port, I have to think a little bit if I can live with the inconvenience of another Ethernet dongle. But that's it for today. I hope you found this useful and learned something. And don't forget to subscribe for all the next videos to come. To compare this with the last generation Intel, this is a Surface 3 Pro. Unfortunately, we do not have each generation of Intel and AMD system here, so I need to compare with what we have. And one example that some people may have are those kind of Microsoft Surface. The latest Intel graphic generation are only slightly faster anyway. So to compare this, we also went down here and have most of this post-processing and lens flare options off. The performance settings are also at the end. We reached 720p, texture resolution low, only 3 linear texture filtering. Most of these options off or low as you can get. Detailed grass of particles low. You could switch it off, but here it starts with 7 frames. With this kind of extremely low settings, the AMD Ryzen managed around 20 frames per second. This last generation's Intel Surface Pro 3 barely manages 10. But as I said, of course the latest Intel Ultra Portable is also slightly faster, but I think most will agree that this kind of ultra low voltage systems are not suitable for playing latest AAA titles. If you want to play slightly older games and retro games, that may be enough. But in my opinion, this kind of machines are more meant to get some work done with local programs and cloud-based web applications.